All right, guys, Crypto Walker here. Lots of people have been asking me about what I think Bitcoin's going to do. Again, this is not trading advice. This is not financial advice. This is simply just a breakdown of what I see with Bitcoin, and it is June 2018. Again, we have to weigh the possibilities with the probabilities and figure out a trading plan that works for our own personal strategy. Never trade what you cannot afford to lose. And let's go through Bitcoin. All right, quick breakdown. First of all, this was the parabolic move back in 2013 from like $100 to almost $1,200. And then it came right back down to previous support around, I don't know what the final breakdown was, but I think it was around $100 again. I'm not going to scroll in too much, but I just wanted you guys to see that those they had the same amount of growth. Bitcoin was just cheaper, so obviously the spike wasn't so huge, but there was support around 50 bucks, and it started slowly climbing. It had another little parabolic move here where it went from like $2 to 200, and came back down to the $50 range, and then another parabolic move up, right? Just within a month. I mean, it literally went from like 100 bucks to almost 1,200, $1,150, and then came back down on a bear trend to meet a floor of around 200. The low was 120, 140 right here. You can see this little candle. But I want to point out to you guys this accumulation zone, which lasted for almost a year. Right here, accumulation, right here, that box right there was all accumulation, okay? See how it just came into that box and then it just couldn't bounce out of it, just went sideways, sideways, sideways from January 2015 to, November of 2015, so almost a full year, okay? And then it finally spiked out of the box, came back down to create this prior resistance here, confirm it was now support, and bounced off of it and just continued the parabolic move from literally, if you want to count this floor, 200 to 19,800 over the course from pretty much from 2016 to 2017. Oh, 2 years, right? 24 months. From January 2016 to the end of 2017, we went from $200 to $19,800. And people are freaking out because this time last year, let's see, where was Bitcoin this time last year? Let's go back to June 12th. Bitcoin was about 2,800 bucks. Came back down to around 1,800 before it did the 19,800 spike. But again, a year ago, 12 months ago, Bitcoin was $2,800. And people are saying Bitcoin's dead because it's right now, a year, 12 months later, it's still almost 3 times that, right? Not quite, 2.5 times that. But we are on a bear trend, obviously. Everybody, you can see it. All you have to do is look at this chart. So I'm going to start drawing some lines so you guys can see what I'm looking at right now. And we're on the weekly. A longer time frame. I like to start my charts on the weekly because it really gives a much clearer picture of what's going on. I'm going to actually draw this first trend line here. Okay, really long-term trend line. We were stuck in this bull channel for pretty much all of last year until the very end, from like September to December. We were stuck in this bull channel for a couple of years, really. 18 months, almost 2 years. And as soon as you guys can see, we bounced in this bull channel, up and down, up and down, up and down. As soon as we bounced out, bam, all that pressure that had been building for all those months, just parabolic straight up, right? And now we're coming back down, all this energy that was spent. And now what I see is we have some consolidation happening here with some sideways movement. Now the consolidation is a lot bigger, you're talking 6 grand to 10 grand, but it could move from 6 grand to 10 grand for 3 or 4 months before it finally breaks out, or we could have further breakdown. So this is what we're going to look at on the weekly chart. I'm going to run a fib from this bottom right here, which was about 1700, okay? And we're going to run it up to the top of the candles, not the wicks. I'm not going to use the wicks. We're just going to use the candles, about 18.9. And we're going to look at some possible targets for how far this retracement might go. Now we hit between, if we take this as our fib measurement, we hit between the 61 and 78% retracement already, right at 6,000. And then we've just been consolidating and bouncing, you know, like within this range here. There's a few lines some people are paying attention to. This could be a descending wedge. If it is, that's a really bullish move. But so we're looking for, if this line here is going to break down, then that would not be confirmed. It wouldn't be a descending wedge. So pay attention to that. Another descending trend line, of course, that the entire market is paying attention to is this one right here. And some people drew theirs like this. Yeah, I drew mine like that first. But when we had this breakout and continued breakdown, I wasn't surprised to see it because we have prior resistance, this trend line here, that had created resistance all the way through until it broke out. And then it became, became support here, became support here, here, and here, but then it broke down again. And so I wasn't surprised to see resistance at the 10K zone because it hits right on that line. Again, these are longer term trend lines that Bitcoin followed, okay? So we could see it break down here and come back up to retest the 11,000 range. That wouldn't surprise me. See it break down to around 5,800, 57, 5,800 and have a nice bounce. But I think that we're going to continue seeing this accumulation zone needs to happen here, just like it happened back here when I was showing you guys this accumulation zone. Natural market cycles have this run up, parabolic run up, has to come back down, right? Usually retest the prior resistance here. If we zoomed in, we would see that this last spike then was confirmed as the floor after this spike. Now, if this Bitcoin move follows past market price, it could literally come down to the $1,200 area to retest it as the official floor, right? Take back all the gains it made last year and come back down to 1,200. It did that here on this little spike. It went from like 2 to 32, I think it was, or 100, or 20 to 100, I can't remember. Anyway, this little spike came back down, took it all away, spiked up to from literally from 100 to 1,200, came back down, took it all away, right? So don't panic, don't freak out if it comes all the way back down to the $1,200 to $1,400 zone to retest this past resistance at 1,200 right here as now future support for the next parabolic move up, okay? But this is what I see for Bitcoin right now. I think we're probably going to hit this zone around 56 to 5,800. And that could cause a capitulation candle where we could see one like this, with this really long wick that might go into the $4,800 zone before it spikes up really quickly and closes above this descending trend line. And on a larger scale, I took a trading view. So that was Coinigy. This is trading view. This is Bitcoin on the weekly, looking at the entire move since it's been on any exchange, since it's been able to be tracked, okay? We have stayed, since it broke out from $30 and went up to 250 and then came back down to 60, back up to 1,150, came back down to retest what? The prior high now became the low, right? Becoming support, again, the floor. Again, yeah, it wicked into this zone here really quickly. down to 150. So it went from 1150 to 150, right? So who's to say this won't go from 19.8 to 1200 again, right? This was the prior floor. Guess what happened here? It broke down, went back up, created resistance right at the last high, broke out, okay, came back down, broke out again, came back down, previous high became the future low, had a year and a half, 2 years before it came back up to, actually it's almost 4 years between this time span, but from the bottom here, staying within this channel all of last year before it reached the $1,200 mark again, broke out above it. All of this energy that was created took us to 19.8. Now we're building up steam again for the next parabolic run up. It could look something like this. Again, we don't know, but there's a lot of institutions who need to get their foundations set to be able to handle the blockchain and Bitcoin and transactions and try to control it. So I wouldn't be surprised to see a slow bleed down to $3,800, $4,000 range over the next 3-4 months. And then around 4,000, we start seeing the next run up, okay? And that next run up, I mean, again, I don't know the timing of this. I don't know how this is gonna look. I think it's gonna be a lot faster. This one only took a year. This one might happen in, 5-6 months. It might take another year, big deal. If it goes from 4,000 to the back up to the top of this channel at 92,000, who's gonna care how long it takes, right? But that's what I see. And then guess what's gonna happen once it hits that major high? It's gonna look like this. It's gonna do it again. And we're just gonna keep doing this as the market matures over and over and over again. Now, absolute worst case scenario is that we see it go all the way back down to the bottom of this channel, a really long, slow bleed down to $2,400 range, and then the spike up. But no matter what, I still see long-term, 2 to 4 years from now, Bitcoin being 90,000, 110,000, right? So this, again, is not trading advice. This is what we're looking at. We have a possible descending wedge right here. If, in fact, we do, this is what a lot of people are looking at right now. Let's get this right on here. Is this descending wedge, okay? Let me get rid of this guy so you guys can see it more clearly. Now, what I find is interesting is all of these lines converge, okay? So this is a really strong support point at around 5,600, okay? It was past support here. If you look at the past price action, very strong support, right? Support, 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 support. This is on the weekly support. On the daily, it probably has tons of, well, here, let's look at it on the daily. It's creating, it was resistance. There you go. It was, this zone was resistance right here, came back and was resistance, broke out, came back down to confirm that it is now support. So there's a lot of strong support at the 50, what is that? 56.50. So I would say in this zone, because I'm not going to say by the dollar, but I like to speak in zones because who knows the exact dollar, can't hit exact tops and bottoms, but you can definitely call out zones. So I'm looking at this right here, 58. From about 5,800 to 5,200, okay? That zone has a lot of support in it, and you see it in this past price action here, where it becomes support here, and then support all the way through here, support again, Obviously, this zone is support here. So we might break down, and it also coincides with our descending wedge line that we're paying attention to. Keep in mind the whole market's paying attention to that. But on the long-term scenario, if you're looking at trend lines, it also coincides with this really long-term trend line, the bottom trend line, long-term, around 5,600, okay? So that's what I'll be paying attention to. Should we break down below that, then I'll be looking at, you know, the $3,000 range before I set more buys on Bitcoin. Right now, we're just playing the bounces, buying the dips, dollar cost averaging in, and holding for the long-term next run, which could be 3 months from now, could be 15 months from now. We could consolidate, like I said, and just accumulate in this zone. And it could look something like this. We need a long-term accumulation. So it could just, you know, slowly stick in this zone until the beginning of next year. And then we could see that break, something like that, right? Just accumulation right through here until it breaks out again. But we don't know. Time will tell. Right now, a few things to pay attention to are these few lines here, and be sure to watch the volume, okay? I haven't even spoke of volume, but volume is king. It determines everything. We've had lots of volume flowing out of the market. As you see, this is all volume spikes here. Volume has been descending for months, okay? So it's important to pay attention to that and to know that that's what's going on. When the volume comes back into the market, you'll start seeing high volume green spikes. And this doesn't necessarily mean, this red volume doesn't mean there was, you know, lots and lots of sellers, but the candle is red as well. So there was more sellers than buyers. But volume is definitely starting to kind of bottom out. It's just been going kind of straight for the last week, which means there's less sellers, and so it's going to cause the market to just continually slowly go sideways until we start seeing those volume spikes. I think that it's going to continue sideways until July, because that's when the SEC and the CFTC and all these regulations are supposed to come out, and lots of institutional money is sitting on the sidelines. Not to say they haven't been accumulating and dumping it on the market to force the market down. I think that's definitely some manipulation going on. But they're like publicly, openly sitting on the sidelines waiting for those regulations to come before they jump in the market, right? Before those big institutional funds jump in this tiny little mud puddle of a market. And the reason I say mud puddle of a market is because it's a $300 billion market right now, not even quite 300. The high was 880 billion, almost a trillion. We almost reached a trillion when Bitcoin was at 19.8, right? And it has gone down to 289, and we're sitting right about 290 today. So the market has continued to suck energy out of the market, volume out of the market. It's got to flow back in. It's going to flow back in slowly, cause accumulation, get boring for everyone before it goes crazy again, just like it did over here. Just going, you know, again, looking at this on the larger time frame doesn't look like much was going on, right? When we zoom in, there's a lot of price action going on, right? But it looks pretty boring right here. We have to, we're not there yet, guys. We're still right here, okay? We're probably about right there, right? Might have another spike up, fake us out. Oh, goes down, 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 down. Slow bleed. $3,000, $4,000 range. Go sideways for a few months in that $3,000 to $5,000 range. And then boom. We finally break out of it and continue our bull run. I hope this helped you. Make sure you get more training. You can definitely check us out on YouTube. Go to freedomfork.com. Everybody have a fantastic day.